1997, won the WBC and the IBF light heavyweight title in 2003. Most recently fought as just as not so long ago as June 2nd on Showtime. He's in great shape. Compiled a pro record of 29, 6-1, 20 KOs. He's also a movie star. Also, ladies and gentlemen, acts as an expert commentator on Showtime Championship Boxing. One more time, the Magic Man, Antonio Tarver. Great to have you with us, Antonio. Exciting weekend here. All the great boxing celebrities. Share with us your feelings on being here.
Well, you know, I'm blessed to be here and just to witness this great weekend. It's my second time being up here. Each time it seems like it's better than the last. So just to be here to watch one of my good friends and colleagues, Al Bernstein, get inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame is such a great pleasure, and also to have Tommy Hearns going in, Mark Too Sharp Johnson, the guys that I came up idolizing and watching their great fights, to get advice from guys like marvelous Marvin Hagler and have dinner with greats like Sugar Ray Leonard. It just gives you goosebumps, you know. These are the guys that you came up, and because of them, you know, you were able to build your dreams and achieve dreams. And so I'm just thankful to be here rubbing elbows with greatness, and just makes you feel real good to be a part of such a great fraternity of champions.
Well, that's great. Great having you back again this year. You and I were talking just briefly, and people were mentioning you're in great shape. Obviously, you just fought in June, but you and I were just touching on you'd like to get right back to work and start staying real busy again. And if you could share with us a little bit about your feelings.
Yeah, I mean, in today's age with boxing, it seems as if once you get to the top, it seems like you don't fight as regularly as the guys of the old, you know, the guys of the past. It just, there's no real dates out there, and that's the whole thing, you know, having those dates. It takes a while to put together a big fight. You don't want to just be fighting and giving everybody or anybody an opportunity to beat you. You know, you want to get the right fights, and you want it to make sense. And it just seems like with today's business, it just takes time for those big fights to materialize, and sometimes it keeps you out a year, or, you know, even the biggest names in boxing don't fight but twice a year. I mean, it's just not a whole lot of activity out there.
And you were sharing with me that you really don't like that. You like to stay busy. You like to keep working.
At my age, you better stay busy. You know what I mean? What you don't use, you lose. And I think when I look back at my last fight, ring rust was the first I've ever really truly experienced ring rust. It took me a while to get going, you know, and I think that's what it was all about. Just, you know, you can spar all day, but it's nothing like those live reps when you're in a big fight in front of the audience, in front of the fans. So, you know, it's important to stay busy, because it takes...
Is that frustrating to you as an athlete, just to, like you say, it almost becomes the product of the business that you have to, you know, I mean, you're still trying to do your things, but you got everyday life, you got all...
Yeah, and you know, we don't, as professional fighters, we don't have a schedule. You know, we don't have 3-4 fights set. You know, you win this, you fight this guy on this particular date, and you have to get these promoters together. Then you have to find a network that'll show the fight, and then the network has responsibilities to other fighters. So, you know, it can be frustrating at times, because we want to work, you know, and I would love to stay in the gym and, you know, have a fight every 4 months, but it's just not logical. It's not going to happen.
I also mentioned, Antonio, as we were talking about that in my mind, and I'm sure in many of your minds too, that really doesn't have anything to prove to us. You know what I mean? He's really attained that. He said he reached a pinnacle, or one of the pinnacles along your career, but that doesn't mean that we still don't want him to be any fighter. You know, continue to be what you want to be, but when we look at him, we look at him as a true champion. That's for sure. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, we get some questions out here. Have some fun with this.
Well, it's certainly a pleasure to see you here. I'm glad you came.
Thank you.
Fond memories of you from the Blue Horizon.
Oh, yeah.
With your outfit coming in. But my real question is, you really do have the looks, the talent, the intelligence, and skill to transcend boxing, and you've done it with relatively few fights. And I hope, respecting you, that you have the sense to get out of time, because you have a future beyond boxing, and I'd love to see you hang in there for that.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
You mentioned you're perceiving frustration not being able to fight often enough. Do you think part of the problem is always alphabet soup agencies and multiple champions, plus the fact that, unlike a few years ago, you don't see boxing on television on the weekend, but then you ever see us on ESPN or the big ones on pay-per-view? You think that's part of the problem?
I think more so there's just not enough, they're not showing enough. And, you know, you get most of these fighters now, they're worldwide. You know, you got a guy in Germany, you got a guy in, you know, Australia, and it takes a lot for those guys to risk, you know, fighting at home, making their steady money, to lose to a guy like me, you know, and then they have to pretty much start back over it. And when you lose in boxing, it's not like the Miami Heat can lose 2 games and still win the title. You have to regroup, you have to start back from scratch, and, you know, that's tough for anybody at any time in your career. So boxing is a little bit different. These promoters and managers just don't want to risk that, you know, and I understand it just takes time to, like Pacquiao and Mayweather, for instance. You know, one of those guys, you know, may not have to start over, but they're going to take a dent, you know, and sometimes they just don't want to do it.
When you knocked out Roy Jones, it was a straight left, I believe it was.
Overhand left.
Right before that, you missed him with the same
Exactly.
shot. Did you know you were going to catch him with that shot?
Well, you know,
trained for that?
you never know, but I was definitely trying to, you know, take it out of the judge's hands. I was focused on ending it within inside the distance, but, you know, when I believe in God, and I believe that sometime when He has you on a path, you know, you have to walk through your destiny, and I think I went through it. You know, I think everything happens for a reason. I think when I feel personally I won the first fight. I went in that fight as champion, even though he came in as the superstar. I had the belts. I felt like I defended my titles, and I should have been awarded the win. But I think that loss really made me go back to the drawing board and train harder, feeling that I had to do something exceptional. And, you know, when I look back at it, it happened just the way it should have happened. You know, I was definitely trying to hurt it. You know, when I say I can't let it go to the judges' cards, I meant that. And I trained, and, you know, I walked through my destiny. I think that was my purpose. And, you know, God sometimes He blesses you beyond belief. And I think when you look at that fight, it all happened so incredible, and it had to be Him, it had to be God. You know, so.
Tony, a question right in front here from Lee.
First of all, welcome back to Canastota.
Thank you, sir.
And my question is, over the past several years, there have been a rash of fighters, a number of fighters past age 40 who have been able to sustain their skills and continue to make a mark at the elite levels of the sport. You, of course, are one of them. Is there a common denominator, or in your case, how have you been able to sustain your level of talent into your 40s while other fighters have not been able to do it?
Well, I would have to say definitely I've only had about 36 fights. You know, I've been fighting at the championship level since I was 16 and 0. And I had a late start. Possibly that might have something to do with it. But I just think when you look at a fighter, I think we're judged by it. Well, I think when you look at longevity, it depends on how much punishment a fighter is taking. I mean, I've seen some young fighters get hurt, and they're unable to, you know, continue after that, at that level. And I think that's what it is. I think being able to preserve yourself is how much punishment you take. Well, I mean, no, I've had some. I had a broken jaw in a fight. That was a tough injury to overcome. Other than that, you know, I've been blessed, you know, to be able to protect myself. And even when I'm fighting young guys, you know, to see it all coming and to trust my instincts and reflexes. I still have that. And, you know, once those things go, then you need to really start second guessing, you know, your reason why you're fighting. If you can't protect yourself, then, you know, you need to start rethinking the game.
2 o'clock is our boxing collectible luncheon with Don Scott. Don has our final question, actually, ladies and gentlemen. I've just been told Antonio's going up to the hospital following this to greet all the folks up there at the hospital. So, yeah, that's what we're talking about. So, last question from Don Scott. Will be holding our luncheon at 12 o'clock.
Antonio, I just want to let you know how much pleasure it is watching you do the 2 things you do now. But this is more of a comment. I also collect boxing quotes, and I thought you had one of the great boxing quotes that I've heard, and it was, "Roy, you're not even the best fighter in the state." I love that quote. I love that quote. I just really caution you. I study the old timers, and that quick wit you have depends on that brain you have. So the 2 things that you're trying to do work to a certain extent against one another. Please, please, we love to see you doing those fights on Showtime, and you know, if it comes down to it, please pick that as your choice. Somebody will succeed you in the ring, but you're just damn good at what you do.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Let's put our hands together for the Magic Man, Antonio.